John Heilman, there's I have been hearing, John, and I'm sure you have too, from Democratic consultants especially, people on both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, a growing fear that Democrats were really starting to lose ground in key races. The Republicans now think on the Senate side that they're going to sweep most of the races, including Nevada, the ones that we're talking about. Arizona probably stays blue, but Republicans feeling great about a lot of the other races. The New York Times basically wrote that article this morning, what we've been hearing this week. Wanted to ask you about that. But of course, with a word of caution, I also remember when I was in Congress in '98, hearing that Republicans were going to have a massive year. And a couple of days later, Newt Gingrich was run out of town. And then in 2020, we heard Democrats were going to wipe Republicans out in the House. Just never happened. So what's your best take? What are you hearing on the ground?
You know, I'm in Georgia again for the second week straight, Joe, and I'll say there's definitely, we are back to the politics feel very much like the pre-Dobbs era. And I want to say the immediate pre-Dobbs era, not like kind of right after the Youngkin victory last November, where there was a sense of like, my God, there's going to be this giant red wave. But there's no question that there's a sense that where we are in that period of the spring was that the House and the Senate looked really different. And I still think that's the case, which is to say, the Republicans have always had we're always by far the favorite to take control of the House, right? Even at the high ebb for Democrats, right the kind of end of the summer in August, you said maybe Democrats have a 1 in 4 chance of taking back control of the House. Now it's probably more like a 1 in 10 chance of taking back control of the House. And Republicans could run up some big numbers on the House side. But if you go around and look at these Senate races, which have definitely tightened over time, it still is the case that, you know, if you look at the races that we always sort of thought would lean towards incumbents, like the Ohio race, like the Wisconsin race, where either a Republican incumbent or Republican open seat, I think people think those are probably going to stay red. I think that people still think that Fetterman has the advantage in Pennsylvania. I think people still think that North Carolina is basically a toss-up state. Georgia, still a toss-up. Arizona leaning towards the blue. I agree with you about Nevada. I think people think that race is likely to be a pickup for Republicans. But you could find yourself very easily on election night in the Senate if you push all these races where they're kind of leaning right now. Democrats pick one up in Pennsylvania. Republicans pick one up in Nevada, and the whole Senate coming down to the race in Georgia here, which is likely to go to a runoff. So I think that the Senate races are still as tight as they could possibly be. And the House, though, I will say the feeling out here on the trail is, if not red wave, the prospects of large Republican pickups in the House are now a lot greater than they were 2 months ago, even 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, Claire, you know, you were there, obviously, in the Senate in 2014. I want to ask you about 2014 and 2022, because this campaign reminds me so much, especially in the Senate, of 2022. Those races were so tight. And then the last weekend, there was a break to Republicans, just enough of a break to make it a big night for the GOP. I'm wondering, even though we're hearing that abortion just isn't the issue that people thought it was going to be even a month ago. We have a focus group that Elise did that suggests the same thing. I'm just wondering if this isn't one of those issues that gets people motivated, that's got people to go out and to register to vote. And if you're talking about a 1 or 2 point difference in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Wisconsin, in Nevada, if in some of those states it isn't enough to move them either 1 or 2 points toward the Democrats.
Listen, all due respect to the New York Times, but I don't see the Senate races breaking red at this moment. I mean, I think this is a significant amount of bedwetting on the part of some Democratic consultants that you might be talking to. I mean, who thought we were going to be a jump ball in North Carolina? Who thought that we would be this close in Ohio before this all began? And, you know, Catherine Cortez Masto, everybody acts like that's a done deal. It's not. That is an even race. It is a 50-50 race. And she is a former prosecutor and a former attorney general that is leaning into this crime issue and that is leaning into an issue that the Republicans think is their gift for independent voters. And now you have Kevin McCarthy yesterday talking about how they're going to cut off aid to Ukraine, an issue that 2/3 of Republicans disagree with him on. And we have an opportunity here in these last few weeks to talk about that, to talk about how out of touch the Republicans are when it relates to what Russia is doing in Ukraine and how much America supports Ukraine. Guns is still a huge issue. You see Val Demings leaning into that. So here's the deal. We are going to win if people show up. And people need to do a gut check here and realize this isn't about how you feel about voting. This is your duty as somebody who loves this country to show up and vote. And if people show up and vote, I think it'll be a 51-52 Senate for Chuck Schumer.